The morning sky burned orange-red as Dr. Emily Thompson stared through the reinforced windows of the Nevada launch complex. This wasn't the gentle sunrise she remembered from her childhood. This was Earth's dying breath. The sun, once humanity's life-giver, had become their executioner. Final checks on hope are complete. Dr. Thompson. Michael Roberts called from his station. The young technical officer's voice trembled slightly, betraying the fear he tried to hide. All systems are green. Emily nodded, her fingers tightening around her tablet. The screen showed the status of all 5 colony ships: Hope, Destiny, Pioneer, Legacy, and Atlas. Together, they represented humanity's last chance at survival. Each ship would carry 10,000 carefully chosen people: scientists, engineers, doctors, farmers, and others essential for building a new civilization. Commander James Walker strode into the control room, his weathered face set in determination. At 55, he was older than most of the crew, but no one questioned his selection as mission leader. 20 years in the Air Force and another 15 piloting space missions had prepared him for this moment. "The atmospheric readings are getting worse," he announced, his deep voice cutting through the quiet hum of computers. "We need to move up the launch schedule." Emily pulled up the latest data and felt her stomach tighten. The mysterious solar radiation that had begun destroying Earth's atmosphere was increasing faster than their models had predicted. Already, most of Africa and Australia had become uninhabitable. The Americas would follow within months. Through the window, she watched as thousands of people filed into the massive ships. They carried only what they could fit in 2 small bags. Everything else would stay behind on their dying world. Many of them cried. Some looked back one last time at the barren Nevada desert. Others simply walked forward, eyes fixed on their new homes. "Control, we have the situation at Gate C." Lisa Anderson's voice crackled over the intercom. "The crowd is getting restless." Emily closed her eyes. They had chosen just 50,000 people out of billions. The selection process had been based purely on skills and genetic diversity, but that didn't make it any easier. Outside the complex's walls, millions of desperate people waited, hoping for a miracle. "Security teams are handling it," Commander Walker assured everyone. "Focus on the launch sequence." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Emily looked up at the strange, shimmering patterns in the sky. The solar radiation was creating new and terrifying effects in the upper atmosphere. Like curtains of deadly light, they rippled across the dawn. "All crew to launch positions," Walker ordered. "We're going now." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Emily triple-checked every reading, every system. They couldn't afford any mistakes. As she worked, the air outside grew thicker with an unnatural haze. The temperature rose 10 degrees in 30 minutes. "Dr. Thompson," a quiet voice said beside her. She turned to find David Mitchell, one of the engineers, pointing at his screen. "Look at these energy patterns. I've never seen anything like them." Emily studied the readouts. The radiation wasn't just destroying the atmosphere. It was changing it somehow, creating something new, something wrong. For a moment, she thought she saw shapes moving in the haze outside, but when she looked again, there was nothing. "All ships report ready for launch," Michael announced. "Final boarding complete." Commander Walker took his position at the main control station. "Begin launch sequence." "Dr. Thompson, status." "All systems nominal," she replied, pushing away her unease about the strange readings. "Launch trajectory calculated and locked." The ground began to rumble as the massive engines powered up. Through the window, Emily watched as the 5 towering ships came to life. They stood like silver giants against the sick orange sky, humanity's last hope written in steel and titanium. "May God help us all," Walker whispered, then raised his voice. "Launch in 10, 9, 8. As the countdown continued, Emily saw something that made her blood run cold. For just a second, the weird light in the sky formed a pattern, like a vast net closing around the Earth. But there was no time to study it now. No time for anything except escape. 3, 2, 1. Launch. The roar of 30 engines shattered the morning as humanity began its desperate flight from the dying Earth. None of them knew that the true horror wasn't behind them. It waited in the depths of space, watching their approach with ancient, hungry eyes. The 5 colony ships broke through Earth's dying atmosphere like silver arrows. On the Bridge of Hope, Commander Walker watched as the orange haze fell away beneath them. His hands gripped the control panel tightly, counting each second until they reached safe distance. "Status report," he called out, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. "All engines functioning at 100%. Michael Roberts responded from his station. The technical officer's fingers flew across his screens, checking and double-checking every system. "But sir, I'm picking up some odd energy readings from—" A sudden flash of light cut him off. Through the view screen, they watched as the atmosphere below them rippled like water. Strange patterns of light danced across the dying planet's surface. "Lisa, check on the other ships," Walker ordered. Communications Officer Lisa Anderson nodded, her blonde hair catching the light from her console. "Destiny reports all clear. Pioneer and Legacy are maintaining formation. Atlas reports minor turbulence, but—" She paused, frowning at her readouts. "Sir, I'm picking up something else. Some kind of signal." Dr. Emily Thompson moved to Lisa's station, studying the wavelength patterns on the screen. "That's not from Earth, and it's not from our ships. The pattern is too structured." The bridge crew fell silent. They all knew what that meant. There was something else out there. "Main engines at full power," Michael reported, breaking the tension. "Beginning acceleration for Mars slingshot maneuver." Walker nodded. They had practiced this thousands of times in simulations. The Mars gravity assist would give them the speed they needed to reach their destination, a promising star system 15 light-years away. As they passed the moon, Emily couldn't help but stare at Earth through the rear cameras. The planet looked wrong now, wrapped in swirling orange clouds that pulsed with unnatural light. Her home for 42 years, now lost forever. "Dr. Thompson," Michael called softly, "could you look at these readings? The energy patterns around the ships, they don't make sense." Emily studied his screen, her forehead creasing with concern. The space around their small fleet seemed to be different, as if the very fabric of reality was thinner somehow. "Keep monitoring it," she ordered. "Record everything." The next few hours passed in tense silence as they approached Mars. The red planet grew larger in their view, a rust-colored disk against the black of space. But something was wrong with that blackness. Emily could have sworn she saw it move sometimes, like oil on water. "Sir," Lisa's voice was sharp with alarm. "The signal's getting stronger, and there's something else." Walker turned to her station. "What is it?" "I don't know, but—" Lisa adjusted her headset. "It sounds almost like whispers." Before anyone could respond, the ships entered Mars' gravity well. The red planet's pull grabbed them, adding to their speed as planned. But as they swung around its curve, every screen on the bridge flickered at once. "What was that?" Walker demanded. "Unknown, sir," Michael replied, his voice tense. "But the energy readings just spiked. And look at this." He put an image on the main screen. It showed the space behind them, where their engine trails should have been visible. Instead, there was something else, a distortion in space itself, like a wake behind a boat. But in that wake, shapes seemed to move. "Could be sensor malfunction," Emily suggested, not believing it herself. "The radiation from Earth might have damaged." "Multiple ships reporting the same thing," Lisa interrupted. "Destiny's captain wants to know if we should adjust course." Walker stood up from his chair, studying the main screen. The fleet had cleared Mars now, moving faster than any human ships in history. Behind them, Earth was barely visible, just a sick orange dot in the black. But that blackness, it wasn't empty anymore. "Stay on course," he ordered finally. Whatever's out there, we can't go back. Our only choice is forward. Emily watched the shapes in their wake, trying to convince herself they were just equipment errors. But deep inside, she knew better. They had escaped Earth, yes, but as she stared into the shifting darkness of space, she realized they might have flooded from one nightmare into something much worse. Humanity's first true interstellar journey had begun, and they were not alone. 3 months into their journey, Hope's crew gathered in the main conference room. The mood was tense as Commander Walker studied the faces around the table. Everyone looked tired, with dark circles under their eyes from lack of sleep. "Let's hear the reports," Walker said, his voice steady despite his own exhaustion. "Dr. Cooper, you first." Rachel Cooper, the ship's lead psychologist, cleared her throat. "In the past week, 73 crew members have reported similar dreams. They all describe hearing whispers in empty rooms and seeing movement in the corners of their eyes." She paused, checking her notes. "What's most concerning is that their descriptions match exactly, down to the words they hear whispered." Emily Thompson watched the color drain from Michael Roberts' face. The technical officer hadn't been sleeping well either, though he hadn't reported any dreams. "Dr. Thompson," Walker turned to her, "what about the radiation patterns?" Emily pulled up her data on the room's main screen. "The readings make no sense. The stellar radiation we're detecting, it's not natural. Look at these patterns." She pointed to a series of waves on the display. "They're too regular, too structured. Almost like..." "Like what?" Walker pressed. "Like they were designed," Emily finished quietly. The room fell silent. Through the conference room's viewport, Emily could see the other ships of their fleet. Pioneer and Atlas flew slightly ahead, while Destiny and Legacy followed behind. But the space between them looked wrong somehow, as if the distance itself was unstable. Lisa Anderson spoke up next. "The whispers in people's dreams. They match the patterns in the signal I've been tracking, and it's getting stronger the further we go." Suddenly, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Bridge to Commander Walker. "Sir, we have a situation in engineering." Walker hit the response button. "Report." "It's David Mitchell, sir. He's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Walker demanded. "He was doing routine maintenance on the engine core. The cameras show him entering the chamber, but he never came out. We've searched everywhere. He's just gone." Emily felt her heart racing. David had been one of their best engineers, and he'd been the first to notice those strange energy patterns back on Earth. Security Chief Barnes, Walker turned to Robert Barnes, who sat at the far end of the table. "Take a team and..." "Sir," Lisa interrupted, her face pale as she stared at her tablet. "You need to see this." She connected her tablet to the main screen. It showed security footage from the engine room, recorded just an hour ago. They watched as David Mitchell walked into frame, checking gauges and making notes. Then the image flickered. "Watch the corner," Lisa whispered. They all leaned forward. In the shadowy corner of the engine room, something moved. It wasn't clear, more like a tear in the air itself. As they watched, David turned toward it, his face showing surprise, then terror. The tear seemed to expand, and then... "Stop the playback," Walker ordered, but his voice shook slightly. Emily studied the frozen image. "The cameras are picking up things our eyes can't see in real time. Whatever's out there, it's operating on a different level of reality." "Chief Barnes," Walker said after a long moment, "I want all crews working in pairs from now on. No one goes anywhere alone. And I want weapons issued to all security teams." "Sir," Michael spoke up, his voice barely a whisper. "The energy readings around the ship, they're getting stronger, and space itself seems to be getting thinner, like tissue paper about to tear." Rachel Cooper looked up from her notes. "Commander, I should mention one more thing. In every crew member's dream, they hear the same last whisper. They all say it sounds like a warning. You were supposed to stay in your cage." As if responding to her words, The lights in the conference room flickered. Through the viewport, Emily watched as a ripple passed through the apparently empty space between the ships. For just a moment, she thought she saw something vast moving in that ripple, something that had been watching them all along. The human fleet sailed on through the dark, carrying its precious cargo of survivors. But with each passing day, the darkness grew thicker, hungrier, and more alive. They had fled Earth to escape extinction, only to find that space itself had turned against them. Lost all contact with Atlas, sir. Lisa Anderson's voice broke the heavy silence on Hope's bridge. Her hands shook as she adjusted her headset. Pioneer also went dark 10 minutes ago. Commander Walker stood at the main viewport, his face reflecting the strange distortions that rippled through space around them. 2 ships gone. 20,000 souls lost to whatever lurked in the void. Play the last transmission again, he ordered. Lisa pressed a button, and Atlas's final message filled the bridge. Something's inside the ship. It's not. The walls are wrong. They're bending, then static. Dr. Rachel Cooper sat in a corner, writing in her report. As the ship's psychologist, she had been documenting the crew's declining mental state. 3 more crew members reported seeing their dead relatives walking through walls today, she said quietly. And the whispers, they're getting louder. Emily Thompson stared at her computer screen, trying to make sense of the data. The solar radiation that had killed Earth wasn't natural. She was sure of it now. The patterns were too perfect, too purposeful. Dr. Thompson, Michael Roberts called from his station. Look at these readings from the hull sensors. Emily walked over, her eyes widening at the display. The metal of their ship was changing somehow. The atomic structure was shifting in ways that should be impossible. Suddenly, Security Chief Robert Barnes burst onto the bridge. Commander, we have a situation in the cargo hold. The sealed containers, they're opening themselves. That's impossible, Walker said. Those locks are mechanical, not electronic. Sir, Barnes' voice was tight with tension. The metal is flowing like water, and there are handprints appearing on the walls, handprints pushing out from inside the metal. Before anyone could respond, the ship's lights flickered. In the moment of darkness, everyone heard it, a sound like thousands of voices whispering just below the edge of hearing. New message from Destiny, Lisa announced, her face pale. They're seeing the same things. Their hull is changing, and they've lost 12 crew members in the last hour. Just gone. Emily pulled up the ship's external cameras on the main screen. The space between the remaining ships looked wrong. The stars seemed to bend and twist, and sometimes they could see things moving in the darkness. Huge shapes that shouldn't exist. Commander, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. I think I understand now. The radiation that killed Earth, it wasn't meant to kill us. It was meant to keep us there. Explain, Walker ordered. Look at these patterns. She pointed to her screen. They're like bars on a cage. Earth was a prison, and we were the prisoners. But not because we were dangerous. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Because we were being protected. A loud bang echoed through the ship, making everyone jump. On the security feeds, they watched as a sealed door in the lower deck twisted and warped, forming impossible shapes before returning to normal. Protected from what? Rachel asked, though her face suggested she already knew the answer. From this, Emily gestured at the twisted space around them. From whatever lives out here in the dark. The radiation wasn't a weapon. It was a shield. And we just walked out from behind it. The ship's computer suddenly began flashing warnings. On every screen, the same message appeared. Reality integrity. AI. Message from Legacy, Lisa said, her voice breaking. They say their crew is disappearing. Not one by one anymore. Entire decks of people just gone in an instant. And Destiny. She touched her headset. Destiny reports no life signs. The ship is responding to commands, but there's no one left aboard. Commander Walker looked at his remaining crew, his face set in grim determination. "Dr. Thompson, can we go back?" Emily shook her head. "The radiation barrier around Earth would kill us now. We can only go forward." Through the viewport, they watched as space itself seemed to tear open between them and destiny. The empty ship was pulled into the rift, metal twisting and folding like paper before vanishing completely. The Hope sailed on, now carrying the last survivors of humanity. Around them, reality continued to unravel, and in the darkness between stars, ancient things stirred, reaching for the escaped prisoners with hands made of twisted space and broken physics. Emily Thompson hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at her computer screen, trying to decode the strange signals Lisa had been picking up. The Hope drifted through space alone now, the last survivor of humanity's great escape. "Dr. Thompson," Lisa's voice came through the intercom. "The signal. It's changed. It's stronger now, and there's a pattern I think you should see." Emily rushed to the bridge, passing empty corridors where the walls sometimes rippled like water. The remaining crew members walked in pairs or groups, their eyes darting at every shadow. No one went anywhere alone anymore. On the bridge, Commander Walker and the others gathered around Lisa's station. The communication officer's screen showed a complex wave pattern that pulsed with an unnatural rhythm. "I ran it through every code we know," Lisa said, pointing to her work. "Then I had an idea. I matched it against the radiation pattern that killed Earth." Emily's eyes widened as she saw the comparison. "They're the same pattern, just reversed." "There's more." Lisa touched her screen, and a new sound filled the bridge. It wasn't the whispers they'd been hearing. This was different, a deep, rhythmic sound that made their teeth vibrate. Emily rushed to her own station, pulling up the data she'd been studying. "The radiation that killed Earth. I knew it looked designed, because it was." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. It was a message, a warning. "From who?" Walker asked, his voice tight. "From them." Emily pointed out the viewport, where space twisted and warped around their ship. "The things out here. The old ones. The ones who were here first." The bridge crew fell silent as Emily decoded more of the signal. Words began appearing on her screen, ancient symbols transforming into English text. "The small ones must stay contained," she read aloud. "The dream shapers cannot be allowed to spread." She looked up at her colleagues. "They're talking about us. About humans." Michael Roberts spoke up from his station, where he monitored the ship's failing systems. "But why? What makes us so dangerous that they needed to cage our entire planet?" Before Emily could answer, the ship's lights flickered. In the darkness, they all saw it, shapes moving through the walls, like giant hands pressing through fabric. When the lights returned, the walls were normal again, but everyone had seen. "Because we can do this," Emily said, pulling up a new set of readings. "Look at the space around the ship, where we believe most strongly we're safe, where we focus our minds, reality stays stable. We're changing space just by thinking about it." "That's impossible," Robert Barnes said from his security station. "No," Rachel Cooper interrupted, her psychologist's mind making the connection. "It makes perfect sense. The dreams, the whispers, they're trying to break our confidence, our belief in what's real, because our beliefs are actually changing reality." Emily nodded. "Humans have something special, consciousness that can shape reality itself. These beings, they're part of space itself. They're what keeps the universe stable, unchanging, and we're a threat to that stability." The ship shuddered as something massive passed by outside. Through the viewport, they watched as a section of space folded in on itself, creating shapes that hurt their eyes to look at. "The radiation barrier around Earth," Emily continued, her voice shaking slightly. "It wasn't just killing us. It was suppressing our ability to affect reality, keeping us contained. Safe." "Safe?" Walker asked. "Safe from them. The universe's immune system." Emily gestured at the twisted space around them. "We're like a virus to them, something that can change the unchangeable. Rewrite the rules they exist to protect. As if responding to her words, the ship's hull groaned. Everyone watched in horror as a section of wall began to bubble and flow like hot wax. That's why Earth was quarantined, Emily whispered. Not to protect the universe from us, but to protect us from them. And now we've escaped our protection. The lights flickered again, and this time the whispers were clear enough for everyone to hear. The dreamers have escaped. Reality must be preserved. The infection must be contained. Commander Walker looked at his remaining crew, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. Then we didn't just escape Earth, he said quietly. We broke out of a prison that was keeping us safe. And now the wardens are coming for us. The Hope shuddered as another wave of distorted space washed over its hull. On the bridge, Commander Walker watched helplessly as the Legacy, their last companionship, twisted in impossible ways before vanishing into a tear in reality. Last transmission from Legacy decoded, Lisa Anderson reported, her voice hollow. Just 2 words. They're everywhere. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence. 4 ships lost, 40,000 people gone. Only the Hope remained, carrying the last 10,000 survivors of Earth. Destiny's final scan coming through, Michael Roberts called from his station. His face had grown thin over the past weeks, his eyes sunken with exhaustion. Before everyone disappeared, they recorded something. The whole crew just faded away, like they were being erased from existence. Emily Thompson worked frantically at her station, studying the data from all the lost ships. There had to be a pattern, something they could use to survive. Commander, she said suddenly, we need to make a decision. Our long-range scans show the space ahead is breaking down, but behind us. She pulled up an image of their path through space. The distortions are even worse there. Walker stood at the main viewport, watching as reality itself twisted around them. Strange shapes moved in the darkness, vast things that seemed made of bent space and broken physics. Can we go back to Earth? He asked quietly. Emily shook her head. The radiation barrier would kill us instantly now. And even if we could survive it, she gestured at her readings. These beings are following us. If we lead them back, they'll break through Earth's protection. Everyone still there would die. The ship's hull groaned as something massive passed nearby. Through the viewport, they watched space fold in on itself, creating patterns that hurt their minds to look at. Dr. Thompson, Rachel Cooper called from her station. Remember what you said about human consciousness affecting reality. I've been studying the crew's stress patterns. When we're most afraid, that's when the attacks are strongest. But when people feel safe, protected, the space around us stabilizes. Emily finished, her eyes widening. That's it. We're not just capable of affecting reality. We're doing it all the time. Our fear is making things worse. A loud bang echoed through the ship as a section of hull began to warp. Robert Barnes' security team rushed to the area. But there was nothing they could do against an enemy that could bend reality itself. Look at this, Emily said, pulling up new data. Every time we lose hope, the distortions get worse. But when we stand together, when we believe we can survive. The ship rocked violently, throwing several crew members to the floor. On every screen, warnings flashed about hull integrity and system failures. They're coming, Lisa whispered, her hands pressed to her headset. The signals, they're everywhere now. They're going to hit us all at once. Walker looked at his crew, the last survivors of humanity. They were tired, scared, but still fighting. Still hoping. Dr. Thompson, he said, his voice firm. If human consciousness can affect reality, then we need to use that. How do we fight back? Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard, correlating data from all their encounters. We need everyone, not just the crew, every survivor on this ship. If we can coordinate our thoughts, our beliefs. Like a prayer, Lisa asked. Like a shield, Emily corrected. We need everyone to believe, really believe, in the same thing at the same time. To imagine a safe space around us, a bubble of stable reality. The lights flickered as another wave of distortion approached. Through the viewport, they could see them now, vast shapes made of twisted space, closing in from all directions. Security Chief Barnes, Walker ordered, "Get on the ship-wide comm. Tell everyone what we need them to do." Dr. Cooper, "Help them understand how to focus their thoughts." Emily. He turned to her. "How long do we have?" Emily looked at her readings, at the approaching wall of broken physics and hungry void. "Minutes, maybe less." Walker nodded, then hit the ship-wide comm himself. "Attention all survivors. This is your commander. We are about to try something that has never been done before. The enemy thinks they can break our reality. Let's show them how strong human belief can really be." As his words echoed through the ship, the vast shapes drew closer, ready to crush this last pocket of humanity. The final battle for survival was about to begin. Emily Thompson's hands shook as she made the final calculations. Around her, the Hope's bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate the thousands of survivors throughout the ship. They had minutes, maybe less, before the entities attacked. "Dr. Cooper," she called out, "I need everyone to understand exactly what we're doing. No confusion, no doubt. Doubt will kill us." Rachel Cooper nodded, speaking clearly into the ship-wide communication system. "Everyone, focus on the same image. Picture a bubble of safe, normal space around our ship. Imagine the walls of this bubble are solid, unbreakable. This is not pretend. Your mind can actually change reality." Through the viewport, they watched as massive shapes made of twisted space closed in around them. The entities had finally tired of playing with their prey. Now they meant to end it. "Sir," Michael Roberts called out, "look at the sensor readings." On his screen, a strange pattern appeared around the ship. Where the crew's quarters were most densely packed with people, space itself seemed to stabilize. The constant twisting and warping of reality slowed, then stopped. "It's working," Emily whispered. Then louder, "It's working. Commander, the human minds aboard. They're creating a field of stable space around us." Lisa Anderson's voice cut through the excitement. "Incoming transmission. But it's not from the entities. This is different." She put it on the main speakers. Unlike the whispers they'd been hearing, this was a clear, strong signal. As Emily decoded it, her eyes grew wide. "It's from Earth," she said in disbelief. "From before. Left like a time capsule in space." She read the message aloud. "To the ones who escape, you carry humanity's greatest power. Your minds can reshape reality. This is why they fear you. This is why they contained us. But it is also how you will survive." The ship shuddered as the first entity struck their newly formed shield of stable space. Through the viewport, they could see it clearly now, a vast thing made of folded reality and broken physics, pressing against their bubble of normality. "The shield is holding," Michael reported. "Wherever people are focusing hardest, reality stays stable." Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard as she combined the ancient message with their sensor readings. That's why Earth was quarantined. Humans evolved in that protected space, developed consciousness that could affect reality itself. We're not just thinking beings, we're reality engineers. Rachel spoke up from her station. "The crew's confidence is growing. As they see it working, their belief gets stronger. The shield is getting stronger too." Commander Walker stood at the main viewport, watching as more entities gathered around them. "But we can't hold them off forever. We need a plan." "Look at this," Emily said, pointing to her screen. She had mapped the entities' movements. "They're not random. They're herding us away from something." She adjusted the map. "There, about 2 light years ahead, a boundary of some kind. The edge of quarantine space," Walker realized. "They're trying to push us back into our cage." Another entity slammed into their shield. This time, several people screamed as reality buckled. But where the crew's belief held strong, their bubble of normal space remained intact. "That's it," Emily shouted. We don't just affect reality. We create islands of stability in their chaos, like immune cells fighting an infection. But we're not the infection. They are. They're a cancer in reality, and human consciousness is the cure. Lisa's console lit up with new signals. The entities, they're communicating again. But it's different now. They sound afraid. Through the viewport, they watched as their shield of stable space began to glow. Wherever the entities touched it, they recoiled, as if burned by the pure, ordered reality that human minds created. All hands, Walker commanded over the ship-wide comm. This is not just a defensive shield anymore. Focus your thoughts on pushing forward. Together. Believe in our right to exist, to expand, to grow. Believe in humanity's future. The Hope's engines roared as they pushed toward the boundary, their shield of stable reality cutting through the chaos around them like a knife through fog. For the first time since fleeing Earth, the 10,000 survivors felt something new growing in their hearts. Not just hope, power, purpose, the understanding that they were not victims running from monsters. They were humanity, the shapers of reality itself, and they were about to break free of their cage forever. The boundary between quarantined and open space loomed ahead of the Hope, a wall of twisted physics and broken reality that stretched as far as their sensors could detect. Behind them, countless entities made of warped space gathered for one final attack. They're massing for a charge, Security Chief Barnes reported, watching the swarm of cosmic horrors on his screen. All of them, at once. Commander Walker stood at the center of the bridge, his voice steady as he addressed the ship. All hands, all survivors, this is the moment. Everything we've got, every mind, every thought, focused on breaking through. Emily Thompson's fingers raced across her keyboard, coordinating the shield of stable reality that 10,000 human minds had created around their ship. The boundary is like their wall, she explained, built to keep human consciousness contained, but we're stronger than they ever expected. Energy readings off the scale. Michael Roberts called out. They're coming. Through the viewport, they watched as the entities surged forward, a wave of impossible shapes and bent space, all hungry for the last remnant of humanity. Everyone, Rachel Cooper's calm voice carried through the ship's speakers, guiding their collective consciousness. Picture our ship as a spear of pure light, cutting through their darkness. Believe in our right to exist, to explore, to grow. Make it real. The entities struck their shield from all sides. Reality buckled and warped. People throughout the ship screamed as the pressure of twisted space pressed against their minds. But they held. Look. Lisa Anderson pointed at her readings. The shield. It's not just holding. It's expanding. Emily's eyes widened as she studied the data. She's right. Every time they hit us, our belief grows stronger. We're not just defending anymore. We're pushing back. Through the viewport, they could see it happening. Their bubble of stable space grew larger, stronger. Where it touched the entities, they recoiled, their chaotic forms unable to exist in the ordered reality that human minds created. Full power to engines, Walker commanded. Take us straight at the boundary. The Hope's engines roared as they charged toward the wall of twisted space. Around them, their shield of human consciousness blazed like a new sun in the darkness. They're trying to get in front of us, Barnes warned. Let them come, Emily said, her voice filled with sudden understanding. Every time they touch our shield, they'd make us stronger. They don't understand. Chaos cannot defeat order. Entropy cannot defeat life. That's why they feared us all along. The ship shuddered as they hit the boundary. Reality itself seemed to scream as human consciousness met the ancient barrier. For a moment, everything stopped. Together, Walker's voice cut through the silence. Everything you've got. Believe. 10,000 minds focused as one. 10,000 souls demanded their right to be free. 10,000 humans shaped reality itself through the power of their unified will. The boundary cracked. Light poured through the cracks. Real light, from real stars, unfiltered by the lens of twisted space. Behind them, the entities shrieked in frequencies that made reality shiver. "We're doing it," Michael shouted. "The boundary is failing." Emily watched in awe as her sensors showed what was happening. "Our shield, it's not just breaking their wall, it's reshaping space itself, creating a permanent passage of stable reality." With a sound like the universe itself breaking, the boundaries shattered. The Hope burst through into clear, clean space. Behind them, the entities tried to follow. But they couldn't exist in the wake of stability that human consciousness left behind. "Message coming through," Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. From the entities themselves. Emily decoded it quickly. "The dreamers are free. The shapers have evolved. The universe must adapt." Commander Walker smiled for the first time in months. "Take us forward, Helm. Best speed." He looked at his crew, the heroes who had helped humanity break free of its cosmic prison. "We have a universe to explore. And this time, we're not just survivors. We're creators." Through the viewport, they could see stars, real stars, unchanged by twisted space. And between those stars lay countless worlds, waiting for humanity to bring its gift of ordered reality to the chaos. The Hope sailed on into that bright new future, carrying within it not just the last survivors of Earth, but the first pioneers of humanity's true destiny. They had fled their dying world as refugees, only to discover they were something far greater, the shapers of reality itself, finally free to fulfill their cosmic purpose. Behind them, the universe would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be.